Hey, y'all, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, this is Joe and Jay Outspoken. As the recording of this, it's Tuesday, May 30th. I'm Jay, and today we're going to be covering a great topic as always. Hey, so Joe, what's the title of this week's episode?
This episode, we'll be talking about American whiteness and how it's impacting and dividing our nation.
Wow. I'll try to not be so white this episode. All right, so welcome back, and looks like we're going over some, my favorite subject, American whiteness. So, what's going on with this, Joe? Are we? Am I in trouble?
No, you're not. Well, yes, you are. According to our administration, you are in trouble.
Okay, what's new?
Um, so, according to Oxford Language Dictionary, whiteness is considered the property or quality of being white in color. Like, for example, the landscape is dominated by whiteness of snow. Right. Another definition they use is the fact or state of belonging to a human group having light colored skin. Very non-racial type of definitions, correct? So, but the more I started looking into that, right, because I keep seeing this topic of white supremacy, of whiteness, and all these things that are coming up, and I happen to come across the Smithsonian, and they have the National Museum of African American History, and they have now taken the word whiteness and made it into a racial derogatory name, right? They've radicalized that word, and I think this is where we as a nation stems with this problem of racism. That's where we begin to get divided, because this is the Smithsonian, right? This is run by the government, by the U.S. government, and
Right.
for them to start changing these definitions to be a negative impact is harmful, right? Because it's like us saying, "Oh man, that's you've just that's so much blackness going on there." I mean that's offensive, right? I
Yeah.
mean, to some people that would be offensive, but you could say whiteness is okay to use out there, and I think that's important that in this episode we talk about that, because I think that is the core uh, issue that we're having in our society today, is
Right.
that we've allowed these things to impact us.
Yeah, that's really crazy. So the Smithsonian is actually like doing this, and they have a definition there and saying it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, they do actually. So let me read to you what it says. Whiteness and white racialized identity refer to the way the white people, their customs, culture, and beliefs operate as a standard by which all other groups of are compared.
Hmm.
So basically, what they're saying is that, whiteness, being white like yourself, everyone else has to kind of compare to that, be at that level, which is ridiculous, because I've never ever even heard of that. Like, even growing up, I've never heard like, hey, you have to be like white people. You have to maintain that level of American, as you have to be white. It's unheard of. I think the closest thing that I've ever gotten to something that seems remotely racist is affirmative action, right? That
Well, yeah.
or that's just ridiculous. But
Well, that's
the
kind of crazy because I think about the Smithsonian Institute and what they stand for, and there's a lot of great historical stuff there, right? And one of the silly things, I mean, this is a little sidebar to what we're going over, but there was a lot going on in the last couple of years about tearing down statues and stuff,
Mhm.
correct? And that was kind of in the vein of what we're going over. My disagreement with that is like, if a bunch of people want to get together, vote it out, and say, hey, this doesn't fit our culture anymore, or whatever, that's fine. We're not a third world country. We shouldn't be
Correct.
tearing them down with ropes and everything. Crate them up and take them to the Smithsonian. It's a historical thing. I've told folks that, and they say, well, we shouldn't be saving anything like that because it's a racist or whatever the keyword of the day is that was seen on Twitter or CNN. And my rebuttal to that would be, well, do you realize that the Smithsonian is full of Nazi paraphernalia and tons of other stuff that has happened throughout history? it is not there to glorify it. It is there because we don't want to repeat history, right? And we want to
Exactly.
preserve it and know where we came from and where we don't want to go back to. So a
But
lot of this, the hypocrisy in this is just beyond crazy.
but it's everywhere. Like you just mentioned something of historical value, right? I mean, these things are historically they're part of our nation, regardless if it was a
Right.
bad thing or a good thing. But not just that. Let's look outside of our nation. Like, um, are all the Jews, if they suffered the most, right, during the Nazi era, at those
Oh yeah, man.
camps, and so is Auschwitz been destroyed? No, it's still there. They've preserved it. They take care of it, and
Right.
that's just one example of how the Nazis almost completely eliminated a whole religious
Right.
or a race.
It was
Um,
complete genocide. I mean, yeah.
exactly, and to sit there and say, let's just destroy it, that that's not what we need to do. We need to remember these
Right.
things. We need to walk by and see all the damage that was done by
Absolutely.
Nazi, right, by the
Yeah.
Nazis. You go visit these historical landmarks, because that's what they are, historical landmarks, and you see that, you look at it. I mean, they have them at the Smithsonian. They have
Right.
some of these train cars where they were brought to Auschwitz, and they're there, but they're not there because they're glorifying it. They're there because this is part of history. This is what
Absolutely.
happened in our world, and because of that, we we got better. We did better,
Right.
right?
Uh,
Um,
100%, man. There's three places, the most recent one to us would be 9/11. We lost two towers in New York City, and what did they do? They built a new tower in its place, and have a big area that they
exactly.
for a memoriam. And then you have two countries that were at bitter odds at one time, the United States and Japan. And both countries, if you go to Japan, there is at Hiroshima, there's a beautiful memoriam, for all the people that, horribly lost their lives there and were hurt by what happened. And then same thing, my
This
favorite ship,
the
my favorite ship in the Navy over in uh, Hawaii that is still there, and thousands upon hundreds of thousands of people visit every year to go see the
USS
Arizona.
Arizona. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
In
so.
fact,
And
the summit that's going on right now is in Hiroshima.
yeah, yeah,
In a historical place, because we were there. But it's just, to me, it's just getting out of hand. Everything's being targeted, and not. Yeah, I want to say almost everything's being targeted to white people. Like, you guys are the core problem, and to me
thank you very
that's
much. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, thank you. But to me, being Mexican, that's offensive. Like, how can you blame all these things happening to a race? Right? We've all lived here together. We've all kind of, it's not like, hey, white people came, they dominated, and also we started bringing all the people, right? We brought bringing in some Mexicans, we brought in some Irish, we brought in some Chinese. No, they all came at the time when this country was growing, it was developing, it was becoming, the foundation of this nation was happening. We were all here already, right? And yes, there was a lot of racism that was going on back there, but we learned from our mistakes, right? We grew from that,
Absolutely.
and we became such a powerful nation. Let me tell you, a nation like ours doesn't get this powerful because we're racist. It just
Right.
doesn't. This is what the left wants to feed into America, because this is what divides a nation. When a nation's divided, this is how people get votes, right? Because you divide a nation, you got two parties. So a divided nation means they're going to vote for a party, right? The other one's going to
Absolutely.
vote for the
Yeah.
opposite party. So that's how you win votes, and it's ridiculous. Because let me just give you a couple of things. Um, so recently, Jada Pinkett Smith was on the news. She was,
Again,
yeah,
surprise, surprise.
I exactly. So she produced and narrated a miniseries called Cleopatra. I think there's more. I think Yeah, it's Cleopatra,
It was the
and
Netflix special.
that is correct. So she received poor reviews. Okay,
Hmm.
so these reviews were
To
poor.
say the
They were,
least.
yeah, and so one of the things she said, the reason for that is white supremacy. That white supremacy is what caused her poor reviews. And that was my exact
Yeah.
reaction to that. I'm like, wow, how is white supremacy impacting Cleopatra?
Yeah.
So
A
in
lot of
looking,
people watched your husband's movies.
oh man. So I'm not, look, man, I used to love Will Smith when I was younger, and I and it's just now I'd never listened to his music. It was too soft for me. But nothing against that music. But he was
Tupac for life.
yeah, Tupac baby. But he did some of his movies were great. I loved his movies, and but that whole thing he did at the Oscars, that was just to me that was like, you know, and
That was ridiculous.
yeah, and then to Chris Rock out of all people, you know,
Right. Like the
it
most
was
likable guy in Hollywood, you know?
exactly. So
And you know what? On a side note, he was awesome. He was a great gentleman with that whole thing. I mean,
who?
Chris Rock.
Oh, well, I mean, how can he not be a gentleman? The guy's like 20 pounds wet. You know what I mean? I mean, what are you gonna do?
Well,
Beat up Will Smith? Come on, the guy
right.
works out.
Well, the thing is, him having a microphone, he could have went off on him up there, and he's a great comedian, so he could have off the cuff just like crushed Will Smith there, but he didn't. And then afterwards, all the little interviews and things that he did,
Yeah,
he never once like badmouth. He was like, "Dude, he slapped the crap out of me,"
yeah,
kind of thing,
yeah,
and honestly made light of the whole deal. He was man, he deserves a lot of credit in that whole thing.
yeah.
And Will Smith, I don't know if he formally apologized, but he really should.
Well, good job, Chris Rock, on being the bigger man on that. But anyway, going back
Yeah.
on that, so and here's the thing about how easy it is to just blame a race, right? Because and how can she get away with that? You ask. Very easy. She gets away with that because that is what everybody's feeding the media, or I should say,
Oh yeah,
everybody
the
on the
narrative,
left.
man.
That's the narrative nowadays. Is like
Yeah.
it's white people's fault. White this, white that. We were slaves to the white man. We were come on, man. It was there was a lot more than just white people that had slaves, and so the problem there is that everyone accepted that. Like everyone's like, "Oh, poor Jada Pinkett Smith, white supremacy at it again." Blah blah. But the truth behind it is that she believe this. This is funny. She is being accused of blackwashing Egyptian history, and
Oh yeah,
this is by
the
Egypt.
Egyptians. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's an Egyptian lawyer right now who's wanting to ban that miniseries in Egypt because they find that offensive. So kind of like what these woke companies are doing to a lot of the movies that we watch now.
Oh
They're
yeah.
they're just, hey, we want to fit in with you guys. We want your votes. We want you to watch us. We're gonna change some things around for you. With the LGBT community, with everything else. Everything's just going woke. But there's repercussions to that, right?
Right.
Budweiser, for example, uh, it happens. So, and when I said earlier that this is the narrative that's being fed, one of the major contributors to that is President Biden, right?
Yeah.
He cannot
Absolutely.
he cannot let go of that term, white supremacy. So recently, he was in a commencement address in Howard University. Did you
Oh
hear
yeah,
that?
I saw that. Yeah.
So he called white supremacy a poison. He actually called it the most dangerous terrorist threat. Not the southern border where we have all kinds of terrorists coming through, but actually white supremacy is our most dangerous terrorist threat. When you feed that to especially young college students who are going out to the world, right? And what else are they going out to do? Vote. He's going
Right.
to throw these whites, he throws it out like it's like pancakes. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you get one, everybody gets one, right? And and but that's, to me, that's like you're minimizing the intelligence of people by doing that,
Right.
and
Absolutely.
it's very offensive to me,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it
Well,
should be to everybody, honestly.
this whole thing with these, the movies that are going on. So, what is it? The Little Mermaid.
Mm,
They're like redoing it, and they have
yeah,
the young lady that's going to be acting in it, and she's not a white red haired
right.
girl like was depicted in the original. Uh, you know, to be honest with you, I don't care one way or the other. I'm probably never going to go watch it anyways. I'm not a huge Disney fan at this point anymore. And however, the thing that I think is very offensive about the whole thing should be to the people that they are switching this storyline over in their color. So you're telling me you wrote a story based around a white, redheaded little ginger girl, right? That comes out of the sea and all that. And now you, as a person of color, we're not going to write you your own story. We're just going to recycle this one and just throw you into it,
Exactly. I was about to
So
say that. That
so it's
exactly.
really sad that that's going on. And kind of going back on your thing with Jada Pinkett Smith, um, the problem with this whole thing of her saying, and everybody else that's jumping on the little, tiny bandwagon, they're saying, well, it's because it's racist, that people aren't. Well, we mentioned her husband had very successful movies,
Yeah.
and I know one of your guys that you like a ton. I do too. Denzel Washington.
A great
I will
actor.
go watch any movie he's in. It has nothing to do with
I
the
love
color of his skin. It has everything to do with
Equalizer, baby.
The
Equalizer.
Equalizer. Awesome movie.
Yeah.
These are. It, he won't be cast into a movie that doesn't have a great script, and
Man on
and
Fire. Man on Fire is another great
Man on
movie by him.
Fire. Yeah,
Yeah.
the one where he's down in Mexico.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a
that was
bodyguard.
awesome.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, and so right there is like that crushes that whole narrative that people aren't watching it, because of it. So I don't want to sidebar too much here, but uh did you get to see the Ghostbusters movie where they had the all female cast?
I did not see it, but yeah,
Okay,
I'm
well, good. Don't
I'm a kind of like original guy. I like the
Yeah,
original. Don't mess with the original. It's like
absolutely.
if they came out with the Goonies, I'd be like, get out of here.
Yeah. So I watched probably the first 20 minutes of it because I love Ghostbusters, right? And I'm like, oh, they redid it. Well, let's see what they did. It was complete garbage. The script was terrible. The acting was not really that great. And when that all came out and it didn't do get in the box office and everything, they were like, well, it's because it's same thing. Guys aren't going to watch it because they're all chauvinistic and all this kind of thing. And my thing
If
to
there's
that
a
is,
hot chick in a movie, I'm gonna go watch it.
yeah.
I don't know what
Well,
they're talking about.
that was probably one of the problems with that movie. No, but it had nothing to do with it. It was all female cast. One, you're competing with an original that can never be. I mean, Ghostbusters 2
Yeah.
didn't do good as Ghostbusters 1, right? And that was the
No.
same cast.
Yeah.
So, the fact is that it was a terrible script. That the acting was subpar. Now, have you seen Ocean's 8? It was the
No.
Sandra Bullock movie.
Yeah.
So it was taken after Ocean's 11, which Ocean's 11 was awesome. In my opinion, some people comment if you don't agree with this, but Ocean's 8, I would put up against Ocean's 11 and maybe beyond. They did an amazing job. That was a great, the cast selection was awesome. The acting was, I mean, way above par. And the script was great. The whole thing about it was awesome. So it has nothing to do with, skin color, your sex, or anything like that. Has everything to do with your ability to perform whatever that task or whatever that
Right.
thing is that you're trying to accomplish.
Well, I'm glad you brought up those movies and that they were the female actresses and it was more about the script. But let me tell you something else.
Who
Uh,
didn't love a good movie?
who doesn't love a good movie? But here's the other thing about white supremacy. Apparently, it's not enough that you're white and you're a white supremacist, but you could also be Mexican and be a white supremacist, which I did not know. So,
So this is your fault too, Joe.
you know, it's not my fault that my birth certificate says Caucasian on there. That's not my fault. I'm still Mexican. But if you remember the Allen, Texas mall shooter, his name was Mauricio Garcia.
Oh
And
yeah,
he had a RWDS patch, which is right wing death squad. And the guy was, I think, Mexican. I'm not sure. He Hispanic. Let's just
that's like a
generalize it.
video game thing, isn't it?
Yeah, there's like a cosplay thing, man. If you look that up, there's like this whole video
Yeah.
game stuff, and it's pretty interesting. But again, how many people, especially with extreme ideologies, whether it's the left or the right, they'll take cosplay stuff or whatever that's already out there, and they use it for themselves because it kind of fits their what they're doing. Um, but when's enough's enough? Like, when is enough? Like, really, when do we stop blaming a race for things that happen? I mean, at what time in our lives do we start taking accountability for our own actions, right? And
Right.
what defines a person? Uh, and the biggest thing about that is that white supremacy doesn't stop there. If you look, and guys and gals, I please go out there and look. Just go Google it if you want. But some of the most ridiculous things is being blamed to white supremacy. Do you know that getting up early in the morning is it perpetuates a stereotype that people of color are lazy or lack discipline.
Wow, I would think that would pertain to anybody that doesn't wake up early. Has nothing to do with your skin color.
So this article was written by an Anthony Bernardi. He it was in Medium.com. He wrote this article, and it's how it's they're talking about that's white supremacy because the white slave owners um, would get the slaves up early in the morning and give them hard backbreaking work from morning till dawn and blah blah. And first of all, it's funny that you have to say white slave owner because clearly that says there's more than it was white people that own slaves. But this is a thing that they're throwing out there. This is the poison, and I call it poison because this is what it is. This is the kind of poison that's being thrown out there. um, CBS News, Miami, back in February, they they made they wrote an article saying that Black Americans are likely to get less uh, of a good night's sleep because of white supremacy. So the factors behind that is noise population and social stress, right? The social stress being that they have to deal with racism and all kinds of things on social media, out in the streets. The noise population is because Black people live in the ghetto. So that is exactly what
Wow.
CBS Miami is saying. Hey guys, you guys are going to get less sleep because as a Black person, you have a lot of noise pollution because you live by railroad tracks or you live by industrial place or you live by the prisons or I mean like uh no, they really I mean
Wow.
they live everywhere. Just like Mexicans live everywhere, just like white people live everywhere, just like
Right.
Asians live everywhere. This is the kind of thing
I'm
that
sure those trailer parks aren't that quiet. They don't have that good of insulation in there. So
well,
just
let me
saying.
tell you, trailer parks are, and this is nothing against you, Jay, but the
Yeah, I live in a nice trailer. Okay, thanks a
when
lot.
people refer to trailer parks, who are they referring to?
White people.
White trash,
Yeah, white
right?
trash. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and
Yeah,
it's funny because that's okay to say, right?
right.
We can say that, but you
Cracker.
can't. But exactly. Um, I don't know if you ever tried sleeping in a trailer, man. It was hard to do, but the here's the thing though, they take just any little bit they can and they do I think they do reverse research, so they'll grab something it's like
Right.
what's
Yeah.
oh, you know what, I noticed that my friend he's not sleeping a lot, he's Black, I'm gonna start thinking why. Oh, the guy lives in the ghetto, that's why, well, that's America, those are Black Americans, none of them get good sleep because they all live in the ghetto. I mean,
Yeah.
how can you justify your
No,
these
that's
these
completely silly.
these articles, man. It's like, and I'm gonna tell you, if these are articles were about Mexicans or about Hispanics, I would be upset because don't put me in that category. I'm
Right.
better than that. You know what I mean? You're not going to say that. Oh, we all live in the ghetto. You're not going to say, oh, we're all getting up early is a white supremacy thing. My dad was getting up early since he was a kid, and he was born in Mexico,
Yeah.
right? And was there white supremacy in Mexico? They- I just don't understand. That's something that those are biblical times, man. As Americans, as God's children, right? We work hard. That's one of our jobs, right? Work very hard, and that's what we do. How can you work hard at 2, 3 in the afternoon? You know what I mean? You got to get up early in the morning, get out there, get
Yeah.
to work, and so here's the thing. Also, it's very interesting that I'm curious to see where this white supremacy is going to end up stopping. But according to the U.S. Census, um, the majority of Americans under 18 are people of color or they identify as multiracial. So that means that
Hmm.
in the last decade alone, that populace right there that I just said increased by 276%.
Wow.
276%, which means that by 2045, white people are going to be a minority. So
Well,
who will we blame then?
right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? At what point is this narrative going to be called out? Because it doesn't go. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
Because all it does is divide a nation, and that's what it's doing. And I think that's
Right.
their goal.
Yeah. Well, here's part of my problem with that is like, so, God forbid this were to ever happen, but if tomorrow everybody woke up tomorrow and they were blind, nobody could see anything, we could no longer be racist against skin color, right? Or
Hmm.
prejudiced or bigoted or whatever you want to say against the skin color, because that wouldn't exist anymore. Nobody in the world could see, nobody would be able to see your skin color and judge you based on that one, you know, thing. But there would be people in power that would manipulate and indoctrinate people to not like something else. The voice, the tone of your voice, the smell, that whether it's cologne,
Exactly.
whether it's BO, whatever. And
Exactly.
there would be something, your accent, whatever. They would be prejudiced over that. There's no doubt in this world that there are bigoted and
They're gonna
racist people that are out there. What's
they're gonna
up?
be they're gonna be racist against people who are not as blind. You're not as blind as me.
You're not as, yeah, you can kind of see shadows. That's not, yeah, you have such an advantage in this world. So yeah, it's really silly. And most of what we call racism now is a form from our beginning of tribalism, right? So if you go back far enough, people were in tribes, right?
Hmm.
We lived in, whether it was huts or in a cave or what have you, close to a water source, right? That's, water is life for everybody,
Right.
and you only knew your little category of people. When you
Exactly.
ran into somebody else, whether they looked like you or didn't look like you, there was a better chance they were going to look like you than not, right?
Right.
Because they were from your general area. You're, at that time, your DNA was pretty close to theirs, but they were from a different tribe. So you didn't like them. What was that based on? Well, because they lived over there. It had nothing to do with this color of their skin or anything else. They lived over there, not over here. We don't like them. Okay. And over time, this is what was used by, people of power and everything to control folks, is to say, oh, those people over there are really bad. And nothing has changed. And in this day and age, in 2023, the fact that people can't get it through their head that most people in this world, again, I'm going to say it again, there are bigots, there are racists, there are,
Absolutely.
nutty
Absolutely.
people out there
And
all over the world,
there'll
right?
always be.
There will always be. You're never going to get rid of that. If you were to go to most people and say, "Hey, what's your least favorite race or whatever?" Most people would look at you and like, "What? That's kind of racist. That's messed up." Well, why would people say that? Because it's true. Because they don't, they don't agree with this whole thing that we're going to put down certain races. Here's the problem: is most people that are of any color or any race, they make their own decisions and they create their own stereotypes within their own communities, their own tribes, whether you want to call that race, whether you want to call it
Right.
religion, you want to call it whatever you want to call it. We all create our own stereotypes, right? So you have like, if you want to say like, I'm being white, you're white too. So the KKK, right? It's one of those things that will come up. All right. If you were to ask just about any white person in the country and say, "Hey, what do you think about them? You truly like them, don't you? You in your closet, you have a white hoodie thing and everything." Most of them are going to look at you totally backwards and be like, "What? We don't like those people at
Well, you,
all."
you got to clarify that. I have a white hoodie, but it's
You
not
do?
KKK. I like
Oh,
hoodies.
okay, yeah,
I like hoodies.
hoodies. We'll keep the hoodies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and little example. So going off your hoodie thing, a couple years ago, and within this last year and ongoing for probably what 4 or 5 years, we've had,
Hmm.
whether it started with the Summer of Love or whatever, Portland, all these places. I mentioned this before. We had these folks that were going in stores and breaking in and looting and running out. And you know what the common denominator with most of those people that running out of those stores with stuff? The common denominator between those people.
I don't want to
I'm gonna
guess.
let you guys comment down below. What is it? What's that?
I don't want to guess.
You don't want to
No,
guess?
I feel like that's a trap.
The big common denominator, I'm going to tell you, they all had hoodies on.
I knew it.
So people with hoodies, let's ban hoodies. Are those the evil thing? Is that what it is? And most everybody on the channel is going to be like, you're being really silly at this point that you're going to say that hoodies are the cause of crime. Well, that's correct. It is silly, but that is a overall determination of an inanimate thing that you say, "Whoa, it happens all the time. Must be the cause of it." No, the person inside that hoodie caused the issue, right?
Exactly.
Whatever skin color they are, it doesn't matter, whatever religion they are, whatever. So our thing, when we were in high school together, when we looked at somebody that was a jerk, what did we look at? Well, that they were a jerk.
Yeah.
Didn't matter. You could be whatever color, you could be,
We
purple
yeah.
princess, and if
We
you
didn't
were a
have
jerk,
those
you were a
issues.
jerk.
We didn't have racial issues back when we were
No,
younger
because it
in high
wasn't
school.
pushed. It wasn't put in
No.
the,
So
and
and that's what's being pushed now. So and here and you hit something that's very important is that
I like hitting
w-
important stuff.
yeah, yeah, especially back when you were talking about the tribes and things like that. So what happens when people don't know something or don't understand something or they don't know a particular they fear
Fear,
it,
baby.
right? So they fear that. And with time fear because they don't understand it turns to hate, right? And
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
and that hate is what is being um delivered
Propagated out here. Yeah,
to everybody. And the saddest thing
absolutely.
about that is instead of the president saying, "Hey," not feeding that narrative of white supremacy and the white this and white that, because all people are hearing is that that's white people, that's white people, that's white people, that's white people. That's it. You're perpetuating hate
To you,
by
those gringos, right?
by doing that. But wouldn't you think that a president would want to unite a nation instead of divide it? So wouldn't you think that
You would think,
the left would be like, "Hey guys, look, we if we talk enough about this white supremacy, it's going to create fear amongst
right?
non-white people, right? And that fear is going to turn to hate." Y'all saw Star Wars, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That happens. Fear turns to hate. So
right,
you have to start disassembling that narrative. And the only way we could do that is if we pay attention to what's going on. And why do we need to keep rolling everything out as white supremacy? Why is
right.
mainstream media sending that information out? Why are they making these articles about they don't get that white supremacy is a fault of why people get up early, or that whiteness culture.
Listen, I don't like getting up early either, man.
Yeah,
I
that
don't care
that
what color my skin is.
exactly, or that whiteness culture is what is causing non-whites to sleep less, or because they have so many worries, so many stress. Hey, let me tell you something. I have a lot of stress, a lot of worries when I go to bed. I have kids, and I worry. They're adults, but I worry about them all the time, right? I have
Right,
my own stressors. I have a job I have to worry about. I have to get up early. There's so many things. I wish I was born rich and I didn't have to do any of that stuff. But the point is that we're sending a message of hate is what we're doing.
right.
And in turn we're dividing a nation.
Bad.
And all this, let's get down even lower to that. All that for just a vote. That's all they
Yeah,
want, a
absolutely.
vote. Because at the end of the day, if Black America or Mexican Americans or Hispanic America vote for the left, they're still not going to do anything for us. It happened all the
They-
time in California. I was born and raised in California.
yeah,
It happened all the time. We get these governors like, "Oh man, when you guys we're going to do all these visas for you, you this and that and blah blah blah." We voted them in, and guess what happened? Not a
yeah.
damn thing. Not a damn thing.
Well,
And
I mean,
look at your president now. What did he promise? What has he promised? And yes, Mr. President, I
yes,
apologize.
thank you, Mr. President.
But like, what is he doing now? What promises did he make besides telling people, "If you don't vote for me, you ain't black"?
Yeah.
What else did he? What did has he done
Oh
for
man,
the
all
black
these.
community?
Well, you
Seriously,
talked about it. You talked about it a few minutes ago about the young, the younger generation that they're trying to indoctrinate them into the Marxist leftist system. And, one of the things that they promised over and over, hey, we're going to, pay for your schooling and all this stuff. And guess what? That's not going to happen. And, they knew it wasn't going to happen. They knew it wasn't going to go through, but they do these promises and things to get people voted in and everything. And it's a sad state that people can't see through this stuff. Let me tell you, regardless if you vote left, right, independent in the center somewhere, doesn't matter. One person, one man, one woman, or whatever else they want to identify as when they finally make it to the presidency, they are not going to save our lives, right? It's up to us to change and make a difference. Just like
right?
Joe said earlier, this whole getting up early thing. I don't like to get up early. I had a gig last night. I didn't get home and unpack till like 2 a.m. Then I had to get up early to go to work. I mean, I was out the door by like 6:30 ish. So, this is just it. I want to get more sleep, but that's just a part of life, when you're doing things and getting out there. And if you're sleeping in till 2:30, and I don't put it against anybody. If you had a rough week and it's your day off, hey, it's your time. You can do whatever you want. You want to sleep in, but you talk to any personal development coaches or anything like that, they will all tell you, like Joe was saying earlier about the early bird gets the
The
worm,
worm.
right? Yeah, that's a racist comment. Well, it's only a racist comment if you take it as a racist comment, and whatever its original intentions were. If somebody wants to say, well, this is how it was originally made, well, that's not what it means to us today. There's a lot of things that have changed over time, and we can decide if we're going to make things racist or not. And you have to decide if you're going to fall into this just this complete indoctrination of our country and kids at this point, or if you're going to stand on your own 2 feet, think with your own mind, and really make your own decisions and not let other people dictate where you're at, and be kind to one another. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
the biggest thing.
Absolutely. I think
I run it.
just piggyback off what you're saying right now. I think it's important that moving forward, I think as Americans, I think before we make judgment on somebody based on their color, that we get to know that individual first. A lot of times it's
Right.
a simple hello or a goodbye or holding a door or hey, how's it going? Could cut down some of those barriers. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
but for us
Yeah, open the
as
door, man.
but for us in the 21st century to sit here still and look at somebody and base everything that negative on their skin color, that's just horrible.
It
That's
is.
not the American way. Like Jay said earlier, do we have a bunch of bigots out there? We do, and we're still going to have them. We could pass laws, we could do all kinds of things.
Yeah.
It's not going to change a person's mind.
No.
Unfortunately, that stems from how you raise a child. And if today we're still, this is what worries me the most, Jay, is that today if we're still raising our kids to like, oh, don't go by that police officer, or oh, don't talk to that white man, don't that you're only spreading that, right? Because
Right.
and that's one of the things I hated the most, when people was like, well, if you misbehave, I'm gonna have that police officer take you away. But you're making that police officer look in a negative light, like, oh, police officer only come to take you away. That's a bad thing,
Right.
and that's not the case. It's not the case for also being a white American. Just because you're white doesn't mean that you're a bad person.
Yeah.
And I say,
Police officers don't trust people in hoodies.
yeah,
Okay, that's what
that
it is.
clearly. So, it's a shame. I think it's a shame that still in the 21st century, we have to point out someone's color instead of who they are, their character. One of the things my dad used to tell me when I was younger was, "Tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are." So
Yeah.
that means a lot, man. That means that as a kid, you hung out with people that were like you, more like you. You never base it on color. So we need to
Oh
change that.
no,
We need to change that.
we, we've been friends our pretty much our whole life,
Yeah.
and there was never a thing about. I mean, here's the thing is that if we ever said anything about race or anything else, it was because we were joking with each other and stuff. It had nothing to do with us being mean or anything like that. And now it'd be called, like, what do they call it, microaggressions and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. It's really sad. I mean, the communities that are being affected the most by the racial
Divide.
divide kind of thing are the folks that MLK was talking to the most. I mean, and judge people by their by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And it's really sad to see people that were that brilliant in our
Yeah.
recent history to be just kind of pushed by the wayside. And and I agree with you. Like, what's next? I mean, you know, there was that movie a long time ago. It was something about like the world without Mexicans or something like that, where they
Oh.
were trying to show that all your food and stuff from your crops, and in a way. I felt that whole thing was kind of racist. It's like, okay, so you're saying that Mexicans only go to fields and clean their toilet. That's all they do. That,
I mean, we
again,
do
this
a good job. We do a good job.
Yeah,
But,
but there's people of every race that pick fields. There's people of every race that clean toilets,
yep.
and there's Mexicans that are lawyers and that are firefighters and doctors and all this. So
That are
it's read
senators and
and
representatives.
senators. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, some of my favorite senators, man, they've got a Hispanic last name. So,
And
um,
let's face it, man. America cannot survive without tacos. I'm just saying that. I'm
oh,
gonna throw that out
dude,
there.
I'm moving if we get rid of tacos. Let me tell you that. So. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. I'm Jay, and that's Joe, and this has been Joe and Jay Outspoken. If you had fun or learned anything, do us a favor, like, subscribe, comment, and share. Those things really help us out and fight the algorithm that may not always agree with the topics we cover. And like most of the topics we cover on the channel, today's topic was suggested by you. So if there's a topic you would like to see us cover in the future, please go to joeandjproductions.com/ideas. And a very special thanks to our Patreons that make this whole thing possible. Without your amazing support, there'd be no Outspoken. If you would like to help out, it can be as small as liking, subscribing, and commenting, or you can grab merch from the Outspoken store. Joe's got some of his favorite hoodies over there. Or for only about $5 a month, become one of our Patreon members. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. Take care of one another.
Do better, be better.
And as always,
God
God
bless
bless
America.
America.